Welcome to the message recap where we go over what we talked about on a Sunday. And this Sunday, we talked about Romans again.
What?
Imagine that.
I know. We're in Romans
4
9
weeks
through
into
11.
an 8-year series.
8 years.
No.
Yep.
Sweet.
We went over Romans 9:1, and that's all we touched. Right? You just went over that because it's 8 years. We got to make this thing play out.
Yeah.
Right?
It was
Chapters-
9-1A.
9:1a. Just
The first word of
first-
9.
However,
the only way we're going to make
the
it.
origins
seriously,
of that
chapters
word.
9 through 11 can be confusing when you read it.
sure.
Yeah.
And
It
especially if
can
you start
be-
there.
In
and-
isolation.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's why you need to go back and read 1 through 5 first.
You got to understand 1 through 5. And
if behaviors mean anything.
Jesus means nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Jesus,
Boy, that is so true.
period.
Yeah. But I think there's a lot to chapters 9 through 11. But I think the all of it kind of surrounds this whole Israel losing its place with God. That is the whole thing. And when he talks about, he gives different scenarios about Israel and kind of goes back in history about it and stuff. So it can be a little confusing. But the whole point of all of that is that Israel was God's chosen people. They had everything going for them. I mean, God was working strictly and specifically through them to change the world, and they're the ones that aren't saved.
Yeah.
And they missed it. They have been taken out of the root, the branch that's been removed. And then they were jealous, like, why in the world are Gentiles going to God? And they didn't do anything for it. You know, we did. Their pride was in their behavior. And they lost their place with God completely. And really, it comes down to that. And the analogy to us is, or the whole teaching or point to us is, we can do the very same thing.
Yep.
That we can, there's only one reason they are not connected to God anymore. And it's a sad, sad, sad thing. And that is because they trusted in their behavior to be right with God. And no one can be right with God by behavior. Don't you feel like we've said this 1,000 times?
Just in the last year.
Yeah.
For real.
You know, but it's so, if you just read, and Romans is great, but every epistle says the same thing. But Romans is great because it is specifically about Christian truth, Christian doctrine, and this is Christianity. It's as deep as it goes. The deepest meaning and mystery of God is we are made right with God by what Jesus did and not us. And I don't know how to make it more plain, simple. The Apostle Paul was stressing that point ever since chapter 1. He just goes at it from this angle, from that angle, from that angle. Now it's the
Jews.
Israel angle.
Yeah.
And you know, it all comes to the very same thing.
It's pretty hard to miss.
It's hard to miss. But there's a human tendency that we want to judge ourselves. We want competition. We want to be better than you. If I try harder, I want more merit for that. There's something in our humanity that we want to earn it. And that is working against us constantly. The churches that the Apostle Paul did start, and he wrote letters back to them, that was probably, if you're going to say, matter of fact, I'm sure of it, his number one issue that he had to keep coming back to and combat is that when he started a Christian church, they started to lean back towards works again. I mean, the number one thing he was frustrated with is, why do you start with faith and lean back to works? Did you get anything from God from works? No. You know, anyway, I'm rambling, but over and over and over, and we're no different than all of those New Testament churches, all the first century churches. We will have a tendency to lean towards pride in what we do and how good we behave. And I don't do that anymore, therefore I am more right with God. We need to live with an automatic resistance of going there. We will have a tendency to go there. We will want to go there. But we need to make a conscious effort to resist going there. I am right with God because of Jesus.
Period. The end. End of story. Nothing else.
Well, and that's the reason I think you guys have repeated this 1,000 times is because it's so easy to get, but you see it in people that you don't get it. You still don't get it. It's got to be, it's not Jesus and I'm a better person, Jesus and I don't do this, Jesus and I do this, you know, and that's the thing that keeps coming up.
And but I think, you know, part of our deal is we all want different behavior. And we've made this point over and over again. Religion, by its very nature, is all about behavior. But all religions pretty much have the same behavior. Doesn't matter if you're a Muslim, a Buddhist, a Shintoist. Is that a word? I know Shintoism is a religion. They all lean to, every one of them, the better, more righteous you live, the closer you are to God. So that's just a natural human thing. All religions are, every one of them are, you must behave better to be more godly. And Christianity blows that away. And we have a hard time understanding that.
Well, and culture shows us and tells us that if you do all these things, that you are a better person, whether or not you are.
Yeah.
The thing from the 3 chapters you covered, and what I think you covered so well in the message too, is that whole Israel's history and look at how good I've done and all my behaviors is the same place that we've ended up in. At least I assume, all I know very well is American Christianity. It's just hasn't gone on as long, right?
Yeah.
For Israel, it went on for a couple centuries, longer than that, couple millennia, but. It's the same place that most Christians that go to church and just, listen, don't understand Jesus, period. Give it a couple millennia, you're going to be Jews again, you know? It's the same trajectory because it's the same, what's the word I'm trying to use? It's the same, attitude towards it. Well, I have to, I know Jesus gets me there, but now I got to stay there. What?
Yeah.
No.
That same thought process.
No, wrong. That's not it at all. And left unchecked, unless we keep Jesus, period. Jesus, period. Next week, Jesus, period. Unless we fight that, we're going to end up in the same place that the Israelites did. Don't we see the pattern? Can't we see this is where it's going to go?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I liked
it's
it
so frustrating.
When you were talking about chapter 10 yesterday and, just making sure that we're inviting people, because it's not the people in Africa, like you said. It's our neighbors. And let's bring it down to the next level. It's our own family, our own kids. Because just because I grew up in church and I know God, I don't have to go to church anymore. Great? Nope, not right. Because who's going to teach your kids? Because at some point, you're not going to be doing it if you step away from the church and you step away from God. And now we've lost another generation. And so it's not just our neighbors, it's in our own families, our siblings. And that's what's really sad is that, we think that it's, these places that don't speak English or have never seen a book before, but that's not who it is. It's all of us. And, in chapter 10, they talk about making sure that everybody's heard, and how are they going to hear if nobody's there to tell them?
Right. How are they going to hear? I think too. It's this isn't scientific, but I think many times it's easier to convince a really evil person that they need forgiveness, than it is somebody who grows up in a Christian environment or Judeo-Christian rules. Because when we grow up in an environment, much like most of America, not all of America, where Christian values are still values, don't lie, don't cheat, don't steal, and when we don't do those things, we almost feel like we're justified or we're righteous.
What do I need to be saved from?
Yeah, what do I need to be saved from? And I think that's more deceptive. I honestly believe this. It's more deceptive to be good than it is to be evil. Because it's harder to recognize I am lost and far from God when I'm being good.
Yep.
But I am just as lost and just as far from God.
I went and visited a church, I won't say what, this past week, and I wasn't here. but there was 90% truth and 10% that went against Jesus, period. And as I looked at the crowd, there were probably 60, 70 people there in the church, and I just thought, like, I feel so bad that if you were, this is definitely a judgment thing, whatever, but if all you heard was this message that this person just gave, and that's what you trusted in, you're going to hell. Like, there's no way around it, because you were told to put your trust in something other than Jesus. You had to do something. And like, man, how people thought they were in a Christian church, and it could not have been more anti-Christian at all.
And I think this is where subtlety comes in. That church or many other churches would say, well, because of Jesus back here, it's tied to Jesus, but because Jesus did
The
for us,
90%.
yep. Now you have to do this and have to do this, and wait, there's a disconnect, because this here makes all of that untrue. Did that make sense? They would tell you, well, yeah, Jesus is why we can do this, but if you don't do this, you need to do this to go to God, to be connected with God.
Wrong.
It's wrong, it's
just sad.
But we're afraid to say Jesus only. We're afraid to say Jesus, period. We're afraid to say we are made right with God by the sacrifice of Jesus Christ to make us right with God, period, because we want to keep adding in.
Well, and that seems too easy.
It seems too
Are
easy.
you telling me I can do whatever I want then?
Well, you can. You'd be stupid to do that. I mean, let's make it clear.
Yeah.
That would be dumb to hit your head with a hammer every day. But you can and go to heaven.
Yeah.
That has nothing to
absolutely.
do with Jesus covered your stupidity, but yeah.
Thanks, Kevin.
There are so many good reasons to behave right and follow. You know why? God's just smart. He knows life. He knows us. He knows if we hold unforgiveness to somebody, we won't sleep at night and it will rot our bones
does
and
that
we're going to
hurt?
die young. Yes. He knows that. So do that. Do it. But it doesn't make you right with God if you do that. Jesus makes you right.
It doesn't
with
make you unright if you don't.
No,
if your faith is in Jesus.
You're already unright, okay? Let's just, I
Yeah.
am unright. Jesus makes me right. My behavior will never make me right.
Broken record.
But one of you said, like, we're saying this all the time. We are just repeating what Paul said over and over and over and over again.
In
you
11
know?
chapters, he said
Yeah.
basically one thing.
Yeah.
And why are we repeating it? Because it's
he did.
important.
Yes.
Yeah. Because
Just-
this is Christian truth, because this is what Christianity is all about, because we've gotten so far away from God's heart and God's intention and what he wanted in a relationship with him, and we've made it into this stupid system.
Yeah.
It doesn't need
And-
to exist.
You know what's sad? You mentioned you went and visited a church that teaches all these different behaviors and you have to do this and have to do this. What's really sad is people can spend their lives learning to live a very good looking Christian life and not know God whatsoever.
Well, like you say many times, Muslims
Yeah.
are really good at doing that. They're some of the best.
Yeah.
And they're not going to heaven.
No, Jesus gets us there.
And that's really sad. I mean, you went to a church full of people that are going to hell.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the sad. I mean,
I mean, I
that's
don't
sad
like,
in
Well, they're being
itself.
hopefully
taught.
some of them, but
They're being taught things that would result in being
Correct.
disconnected from God.
it was horrible. I could not believe what I heard.
Yeah. So we're gonna end on a down note. So
Yeah. Well, don't go to that church. How's that?
Let me tell you what church it was. It was in.
But I think honestly, like for people, sorry,
No,
you
no,
want to
go
end the
ahead.
message, or a recap. But
no, you got more. Go ahead.
I do. I just think, like you said before, like last week and the week before, if you don't understand chapters 1-5, go back and read them because that's the most important. Read that and then continue with the rest of Romans
Yeah.
because that's where the fundamental Christianity begins.
That's the foundation. Everything else has to build off that. 9 through 11 is not the foundation. 6 through 8 is not the foundation.
And 9 through 11 will confuse you if you don't understand 1 through 5.
And you can't read just chapter 1 and stop there.
No.
You know, I mean, chapter 1's just saying basically, sin will be judged. Every sin will be judged. Yeah, every one. So if we don't commit 99, but we commit 1, we're judged. Okay.
Yep.
Jesus takes it anyway. I don't need to go over the whole thing, but yeah, that's what it's about. Don't you love being a Christian? The freedom. We sing song after song after song about the chains being broken and the
After hearing that other church, I left with such an appreciation of I know that I know that I know. All those people, I can't understand how they couldn't live in confusion and fear each and every day of like, man, what if today's my, what if I get in an accident? What if I don't do this? What if I, like, all the what ifs, and like to be a Christian and have all of those answered is so that is freeing, peaceful, not worrisome. I don't know, fill it up with a bunch of adjectives, but like I left being so grateful for Jesus that like I don't have to worry about that.
have to live in fear. If I die right now, am I doing everything perfect?
Yeah.
Do I have every thought, right? Am I not being negative? Can you imagine living with that on those pins and needles?
Gotta make sure you cross all the T's and dot all the I's.
Yeah.
And
Because
get
what
rid
if
of
I die?
Probably
I got to make
10
sure everything's right.
10 years ago, a person in our small group, their mom thought, well, as long as you die on the steps of the church.
That's holy cement.
Well, what if I'm out of town? What if I don't know where the nearest, like, the fear and anxiety. This is not like, I lose a $10 off coupon to Applebee's if I don't die. Like, this is eternity.
Right.
If you, I would live with such anxiety if that was what I believed. I would set up camp on the steps of
Yeah,
the church.
I would
Like, there
live
ain't no
on the
way
steps of-
in hell, literally, that I am going to die somewhere
Take
else.
the
if my
risk.
eternity
The
hangs
risk
on me
of-
passing away on these steps.
Yeah. I mean, well, what do you do? I was on my way to the stairs. I was on my way
Hey,
to
that's
the
why
steps.
it's so good
Was.
to ask ourselves, for every one of us to ask ourselves, this is what I believe. Why do I believe that?
Yeah.
Did Jesus ever say something about the steps? Did the apostles say the steps were important? Who made that up along the way? Why do I believe that? Is it true?
Yeah.
Well, the steps are important. Step 1, Jesus, period.
Okay,
And
End of
that's the
steps.
only step.
We've got a one-step program here at this church
For knowing God,
for being made
Absolutely.
right with God.
being right and free to know God.
Lots of other steps can follow. None of them have anything to do with step 1.
Yeah.
So there you go.
All right.
Oh, but
Oh,
we
there's
should
more.
end.
See?
You were bringing it up earlier, Radine, and that is we kind of ended with in these 3 chapters. It was so compelling that Paul's anguish was that these people would know Jesus, and kind of we ended the message with what he said. Hey, this truth is so amazing. Like we're saying, it's so amazing. Everybody needs to put their trust in Jesus. But how can they if they don't believe? How can they believe unless somebody tells them? And the whole point is, who's going to be the ones telling them? It has to be us. And the thing you started last week with,
And that us is not just the 4
No.
of us, correct?
no, but
No.
inviting
All of us.
people to church is I think the best way. We should always be sharing why we believe what we believe and what we experience with God, always. But it's great to that environment of the gathering is a great environment. Yeah.
Yep.
That's what Everyone Invite One is all about.
Yep, it is.
Absolutely, because everybody needs to hear it. Well, thanks for joining us. We'll see you next week. Peace.